Good afternoon if you're hearing me from anywhere. It's 5 past 5 p.m. today, and I'm happy to be here. By the way of introduction, if you're meeting me for the first time, my name is Bukola. I am a registered nurse by profession. I practice as a children nurse. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, and by the way of health, I am one of the people who are warriors. When we say warriors, it means we fight battles and we are winners in that battle. Warriors in the fight against sickle cell, warriors in the fight with sickle cell disease. This evening I have scheduled to talk about sickle cell, how it can be prevented, and what our experiences I've had so far with sickle cell from my personal self and from my practice as a nurse. I have got not just myself that fight against sickle cell. I have family members, siblings, and I have cousins with sickle cell. So I have got a bit of experience about sickle cell, being affected myself, having siblings and other extended family members that are affected with sickle cell. My aim in this group is to create awareness against sickle cell. I believe that we still have people, especially people in rural area, who are ignorant of sickle cell, and I believe that there are people in rural area and also people who belong to low socioeconomic status who either do not know about sickle cell disease or they don't have the means to get tested concerning their genotype, and so they just get married and then they have children that have sickle cell again, not helping the matter, or they keep reproducing sickle cell carriers. According to statistics in Nigeria, about 1 person in every 4 people are carriers of sickle cell disease. And when we say carriers of sickle cell disease, we mean that people that are AS, AC, they are the carriers of sickle cell disease. And these people, even though they are not rightly affected, they are able to have children that have sickle cell disease. So statistics shows that 1 out of every 4 people in Nigeria are carriers of sickle cell disease, and that is the major target. If we can educate people that are carriers not to reproduce people with sickle cell disease, then life will be better for all of us, or for majority of us. Not reproducing children with sickle cell disease is just by one way, and the only way is by getting tested. Know your genotype before you get married. Not just know your genotype. From my practice, I have seen that there's possibility of errors when you get tested for your genotype. There's possibility of a laboratory making error. They are humans, and there's need for you to confirm again after checking your genotype from one laboratory. It's the best thing that you should check again that genotype with another laboratory. I have seen from experience parents that claimed to be AA. One partner says I am AA, the other partner says I am AS, but the person that was AA was just by mistake. They are AS in the real sense, but there was a mistake from the laboratory. So when I say do it, then check again to reduce the incidences of sickle cell disease. There is a bigger burden of sickle cell disease in Nigeria. It's been established that Nigeria has the highest number of people living with sickle cell disease in the whole world, and that is very concerning. Very, very concerning. The burden of sickle cell altogether, about 33% of people living with sickle cell disease are from Nigeria. And when you check countries like United Kingdom, United States, so many people living with sickle cell in those countries are sometimes people of African origin. Sickle cell it's not really common in places like United States, United Kingdom. It's mostly common in places like Africa. Unfortunately, we are not really doing so much to help the reduction. Statistics shows that even as at now, about 150 babies are born annually with sickle cell in Nigeria. That is how much children we are still producing in Nigeria that are sickle cell babies. The only way we can reduce this number, or at some point in the future eradicate this number, is through genotype testing. And one other thing we can do about reducing sickle cell disease which is very difficult, is managing our relationship. It's a difficult one to say, but it's always good that when you know you are a sickle cell carrier and you are in a relationship with another person who you think might also be a sickle cell carrier. I mean, when you are AS and the other person is AS, it's better to separate ways in that relationship, because the end result is not going to be the best one, trust me. Best thing to do in a relationship like that is just to stop the relationship and elsewhere, go for another relationship. It's a difficult one. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Think about it. In my little experience, I've met parents who, after having children with sickle cell disease, are advised to part ways because possibly they've had just one or two children, and it's advisable at that time to say, do you want to part way or do you want to stop having children? And it's always difficult to part at that time because most of them, they have put their lives together, like they've invested together. I've met a woman that said to me, where do you want me to start at that point? If you are advising that we part our ways, we have been together, we have done so much together, I don't know where to start myself, I can't leave him. So the best thing to do is, at the early stage of that relationship, just part way, let each other go, find a better partner. I am not saying you are not a better partner at that point, but you know what I mean. The end results will not bring the better results you want in a relationship. There are so many issues with sickle cell disease, and personally, I've experienced some of them, not all of them. I have siblings who experienced other ones I did not experience myself, and unfortunately, I have lost some of my family members who are affected with sickle cell disease. Like, I've lost a cousin who was born with sickle cell disease, and unfortunately, it took a very long time. The attachment is there; you cannot replace that attachment. So it's a very difficult thing to say, but best thing is just don't start it. From my personal experience, I have children that are tested positive, that sickle cell disease from age 6 months of life, and that is the worst part of it, because that child, at the point they cannot see what they are going through, they are just crying, babies crying every time, they are not well every time, in and out of the hospital. And because of the level we are in Nigeria, sometimes it takes a while to diagnose that sickle cell disease. Unlike advanced countries, where once a child is born, they do all the genetic testing to see what are the genetic problem that child has got. In Nigeria, we don't do it. The child is born. In fact, I think the last thing I know about Nigeria, we cannot actually get a child's genotype until that child is 6 months, which is not so in other countries, in advanced countries. I believe some African countries are still the same level with us. But in advanced countries, once the child is born, they're able to do all the genetic testing. They know what that child is having as a problem. They start treating them ahead. But in our dear Nigeria, we wait until the child is 6 months. And at the age of 6 months, we still don't do it. We just assume the child is fine. We don't need to do genotype testing until the child starts getting sick. Most time they are not diagnosed. Most time we term them as spiritual problems. I have witnessed the one that are termed as spiritual problems, and they are being told to just pray about it. There's something wrong with the child. Something is not just right, and it might take a while before that child is tested. To avoid issues like that, I think the best thing is to get tested, know your genotype, avoid the relationship that will lead to the pain. One problem, I'll just quickly list some issues with genotype with children with sickle cell. One problem is anemia. Anemia occurs in sickle cell people, occur in people with sickle cell, like myself, because the blood cells in every human spends about 120 days before they are destroyed. There's the life cycle of blood cells, the red blood cells. Whereas people with sickle cell disease, their red blood cells only spends about 21 days and then they get destroyed. So that makes them to have their blood cells destroyed on and on and on and on. And because of that blood cells destruction, they go into anemia. And when there's anemia, there's need for blood transfusion. We know what it is to have frequent blood transfusion. There are so many issues with blood transfusion that you don't want to expose your child to transfusion today and tomorrow and every time. There's need for longer hospital stay for people that have children with sickle cell disease. It's not just the disease affecting the child, it's something that affects the whole family. It puts a life like at a still, because the life of that child dictates how your life goes, dictates how your family is run. You can't just make decision of tomorrow I'm doing this, because that tomorrow when you wake up and that child is having sickle cell crisis, that's another problem that is very common in children with sickle cell disease, like very, very common. They call it vaso-occlusive crisis. That happens because the blood cells are not in the right shape. They've got abnormal shape, and that abnormal shape can block the blood vessels. And when they block the tiny blood vessels, then there is pain at that particular part of the body. That pain is frequent. That pain is a pain that I can't explain it. I've had it before. It's difficult to explain. I have had someone talk to me before to say by the grace of God, she is a female and she's had children. And she said to me, I don't care about labor pain because it doesn't look like a big pain. That is to tell you that because they've had frequent previous sickle cell crisis, labor pain doesn't look like any pain to them. So the pain with sickle cell crisis is a very intense pain that is, I don't know how to describe it, but you don't want to have a child that you will subject to having that pain. It's not a pain that happens once in a month. It doesn't happen once in a year. Like, you can't predict it. It can decide to happen anytime. Sometimes it's throughout the week. And when that happens, it slows down the journey of your child. The school attendance is slowed down. Whatever their mate is doing, there's possibility they will not be able to do. Growing up, I remember I was reminded many times not to play with my other mates, because the fear that if you go do that, it might